How to get out of gold or silver in season 14. So previously I was hard stuck for several of seasons. Now I consistently get out of silver elo, and I wanted to help anyone who's serious about getting out of silver elo or who's hard stuck in silver also. These tips work for both solo queue and duo queue, and I was playing solo queue for all these games. Tip 1, have a small pool and stick to one role. This allows you to be more familiar with the champions and more consistent with the champions. You also have a better chance to counter enemies than if you were to just one trick a champion, which is very beneficial in terms of winning lane, which leads to winning game. Next tip is do not feed. So having a small pool and sticking to one role will help with not feeding, as you're more familiar with the scenarios and the champions and the matchups, and you know how to play your role also. Tip 3, play the jungle, mid or top lane roles, as they are better carry roles. You'll get more XP and gold than if you were to play support, and you don't have to rely on your support if you were to play ADC. Just a side note, this isn't to say that playing support or ADC won't get you out of the elo. You can still use all these tips if you're playing the ADC and support role, but it is just a better carry role to play jungle, mid or top lane. And this is just my personal opinion and from what I have experienced in silver elo. Tip 4, always be aware of jungle ganks. So if the enemy was starting bot lane, then they're likely to reach top once you've hit level 3. And so be aware that they may gank you by playing safe or warding. Another tip is when you're pushing wave into enemy tower, to be aware that the enemy jungle might gank you, especially if you're low HP. These are just general tips. I'm sure there's a video on YouTube about how to play versus jungle ganks. So if you feel like this is the area you need improvement on, I would definitely recommend watching those videos. Again, all these tips are very important, and if you apply all of these tips, it is pretty much guaranteed that you will go up at elo. So tip 5, focus on taking towers and Baron and Elder. Taking towers and then eventually inhibitors is what's going to win you the game. Baron and Elder will also help you to achieve taking towers. Soul is important, but in my opinion not as important as the things just listed. Second to last tip is don't underestimate the importance of pre-lobby draft. You can actually save yourself from a lot of losses if you dodge correctly. The general tips for dodging are: is there a troll pick, for example Teemo jungle, or is there an OP champion on the enemy team and none on your team, for example an enemy jungle Kayn. Another one is there any counters on the enemy team, for example the enemy team has Garen top and your top laner is Riven. Or does the enemy have 3 tanks and you have none? All of these things will influence whether you win a game or lose a game, and if 3 or sometimes even 2 of these statements are true, then you should definitely consider dodging. There are more things to consider when dodging, but for now we'll just leave it at this, and if you want to add anything on, you are more than welcome to. Final tip is to have a 3-to-1 loss ratio. Now you can climb by winning 2 games and losing once, but obviously this is going to be much slower than 3 wins and 1 losses. So if your match history shows 2 wins and 1 loss or worse, it's highly likely you're doing something wrong, and you should look over the earlier tips and you should either consider changing something in terms of your champion and your role. These tips should give you the guidance and knowledge to get out of your elo that you're currently in. If they do, please leave a comment and leave a like.